Howdy, folks, and welcome back. Hope you're all blessed and doing okay out there. Well, for today's video, I present to you, let me get the box, America's Historic Steam Railroads, Strasburg Railroad. A lot of you may know about this, a lot of you may not. The Strasburg Railroad is the oldest operating railway in America, founded back in 1832. It's where some of the oldest railroads actually got their start, in that very area. Pennsylvania is also one of the 13 colonies originally for the United States. They operate historical equipment, steam engines, passenger cars, and they run through the Pennsylvania Amish country. There's also a pretty cool train museum nearby. I have not yet been on this road, but someday I hope to see it for myself. Anyway, sit back and enjoy. All aboard the Strasburg Railroad.
All aboard!
Hello, I'm Bob Schreiber. Welcome aboard America's Historic Steam Railroads. Today we're going to visit one of the oldest and busiest historic steam railroads in the United States. In the southeast corner of Pennsylvania, just west of Philadelphia, we find the town of Strasburg. It's here in 1832 that the railroad was chartered, and the line that runs through the Amish countryside was born. The people that operate this historic railroad today take great pride in the restoration of some very old passenger cars, boxcars, tank cars, and of course, the mighty historic steam locomotives. When passengers ride on these trains, it's like turning back the calendar to the turn of the century. Let's meet some of these people that help preserve our rich heritage on America's Historic Steam Railroads.
I think the majority of Americans are interested in nostalgia, and they realize that American steam railroads helped build this country. It was the steam locomotive powering those trains. And people think of the good old days when they see a steam locomotive. Now, a steam locomotive also is very visible. An internal combustion locomotive, a diesel locomotive, has everything covered up by a shroud like an automobile. But a steam locomotive has bared itself to the public, and you can see most of what a steam locomotive is in front of you, and you can see it working, you can hear it working, and I think that's what fascinates the average person.
First thing in the morning when we finish the hostling in the engine house and we've completed the things we do inside, we then make sure all the switches are set in a line correctly, and we make sure that the various points are covered for crossings, and we bring the engine out of the engine house back to the coal wharf. There we coal the tender, make sure we have enough coal for the day. When we're done that, we go back to where the ashes should be removed from the ash pans. And we remove the ashes back there and complete cleaning the fire. Then the fire's finalized for the trip during the morning, and that's about it on the ash track. Then when we're completed with that and we finish, we take it out and go up to the main line, the beginning of the main line, up an incline. And we run the locomotive a little bit hard to blow out the front end of the locomotive and to clean out any matter that may be blocking the drafting for the day. It makes the engine fire better throughout the day. Then we bring the engine back to the location where you see it now, and we complete our daily chores. We're going to finish up the hostling to begin the day here at the Strasburg. Why don't you come along with us today and see how we do it, getting ready for the first run of the day. Okay. We're getting oil on the wicks here on the driving boxes so as to provide lubrication throughout the day. This is journal oil, and it's a thinner type oil. There are a number of oils used on an engine, and this is used on the shoes and wedges and used in the journals of the tender. That's the air compressor or air pump, which is pumping air into main reservoirs of the locomotive to run all the various things that run off of air. Now I'm going to put oil into the various lubricating points. We don't want to do this too early on a very hot day as today, because the oil tends to get thin and run out of its lubricating points. All aboard!
The route over which we are traveling this afternoon is one of the oldest railroad rights of way in the entire world. It was granted to the Strasburg Railroad Company by an act of the Pennsylvania State Legislature on June the 9th, 1832. For over a century and a half, this little railroad has been serving the community of Strasburg. Coming into view on the left-hand side of the train, you'll see a neat row of little red cabooses. These belong to the Red Caboose Lodge, a privately operated motel, which is one of the very few places in the world where you can spend the night in a real caboose. A little further off to the left, you can see the flagpole and tower of the Toy Train Collectors Association, which houses a fantastic selection of antique toy trains. Now, in case you've been wondering about our speed, it's really quite simple. The oldest timetable we ever found for our line was in the Lancaster Inland Daily on December the 2nd, 1851. We still follow that same basic schedule today. So if you ever wondered just how fast great-great-grandpa traveled here on the Strasburg, well, this is it. We try to keep it under 80 miles an hour at all times. We have to ask you to avoid the temptation of jumping off and running ahead of the locomotive. That just infuriates the engineer, and it makes him a little mad too. The large buildings coming into view on the left-hand side belong to the Esbitshade Turkey Farm. It's believed to be one of the oldest turkey farms in the country. Has been in the same family for about 8 generations. This area of Lancaster was settled in the very early 1700s. Route 741, running parallel to our tracks off to the right, the road that you took into our station today, was originally a Conestoga wagon trail, opened about 1710. It led from Philadelphia to the Indian outpost at Carlisle, just west of Harrisburg. Cherry Hill is next. Cherry Hill. This is the largest suburban stop on our line. Now, the station lies on the left-hand side of the train, very close to the tracks, just before the next road crossing. Now, I'll admit it will probably look a bit small to you, but that's because of the high rate of speed at which we go by. And try not to miss the sign on the station. The sign reads population 17, more or less. That means more when we get there, a lot less when we leave.
The passenger cars are basically wooden coaches. These coaches were in fairly poor shape when they arrived. Here at the Strasburg Railroad, we returned the coaches to their original condition, including the interiors, the hardware, the various fittings, the lighting fixtures, and of course the seats.
When we restore a car, we try to save as much of the original car as we possibly can and still maintain a car that's safe for daily operation. A lot of the interior decorative things are original. What happens when we find wood rot in a car, as you can see here, what we will do is cut out a lot of this rotted area, make it a nice flat surface, and we will treat the rotten area with a liquid epoxy, hoping that it won't continue to rot in the future. Then we will replace new wood on top of the flat surface, glue it, and screw it together, make it as solid as we can. And we also are in the habit of painting everything to seal the water. We're very fortunate to have the skilled and the dedicated employees that we have at Strasburg. We're very fortunate to have that kind of employee here at the railroad, because that's really what makes all of this possible. Skilled employees that are dedicated to the preservation of railroad equipment. At the present time, we have 4 steam locomotives. The number 31 was the first one acquired, an 060 from Canada. The number 90, which is our largest locomotive, a 210 from the Great Western Railroad in Colorado, where it worked hauling sugar beets. We also acquired a 260 Mogul type, number 89, from the Canadian National Railroad. Recently, we acquired a 480 locomotive, the only one of its type in operation. It was a former Norfolk and Western locomotive. We restored it here over a 2-year period at over $600,000 in cost. And it is one of the larger locomotives on the Strasburg Railroad and will be featured on our longer trains.
Now, for the past few miles, we've been traveling through what is commonly known as the Dutch country, the fertile farmlands of the Plain people, the Amish, the Mennonites, and the Dunkers. Within a 10-mile radius of our railroad live some 18,000 Amish people. They live a very peaceful and quiet life of hard work and deep religious devotion, exactly as their ancestors did when they arrived here about 275 years ago from Germany, Switzerland, and portions of France. The big farm coming into view in the valley off to the right is a typical Lancaster County Amish farm. Neat, clean, but very plain. No carpets, just a few curtains upstairs. No radio, television, or telephone. In fact, no electricity. Attention, all children on board the train. Do you believe in ghosts? Well, I think you will very shortly. Many, many years ago, in the second valley off to our right beyond those hills, there ran a little narrow gauge railroad, the Lancaster, Oxford, and Southern. Now it's been gone for over 75 years, but sometimes when we blow our whistle here at Carpenter's Crossing, the ghost of the old LO&S answers back. Listen carefully. No, folks, you just think that's an echo. Actually, we pay that old ghost $27.50 a day to sit over there and do that for us. Very shortly, we will be crossing the Strasburg's one and only bridge. You won't see this bridge, I hope. It's supposed to be underneath us. But you will see where the Pumpkinville Turnpike runs right underneath our tracks. This is a big bridge, it's darn near 16 feet long. Lemon Place Junction is next. Lemon Place Junction, where the main line of Strasburg meets the main line of Amtrak and Conrail. A short distance ahead, our tracks will curve sharply to the left, and we'll come alongside the main line running between New York and Chicago. The famous Broadway Limited is passed by here daily, running between those two cities. The locomotive pulling our train this afternoon is old number 90, built back in 1924 by the Baldwin Locomotive Works of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Together with its tender, it weighs 186 tons, carries 9 tons of coal and 10,000 gallons of water. For just one of our little round-trip excursions, our locomotive will consume 1,000 gallons of water and 1/2 ton of coal, all hand shoveled by our firemen. Our engineer and firemen this afternoon are Tom and Andy. In just a moment, we'll be uncoupling the locomotive from the front of the train. It will be passing right by us on the interchange track. Have your cameras ready to couple up at the other end for the journey back to Strasburg. Now, as old number 90 goes by, let's give our engineer and firemen a great big wave, yell, and cheer. They deserve it. They love it. And besides, if we don't, they just might possibly forget to pick us up and take us back to Strasburg.
On Easter weekend, we have the Easter Bunny riding the train. The Easter Bunny is different than most bunnies in that the bunny operates as a mime and doesn't talk. Goes to the coaches, greets the children, gives each child a candy treat, and poses for pictures. It's very, very popular. At Christmas time, on the weekends preceding Christmas, Santa rides each train. He goes through the trains just as the Easter Bunny does, greets the children and gives them a candy treat, and poses for pictures. Very, very popular here in Lancaster County. And one of the reasons is because the parents don't have to stand in line. Santa comes to them. All they have to do is ride the train. There have been occasions where we have taken on a project to rebuild a locomotive for an individual who happens to have the equipment and it is just interested in having a locomotive operational for his own purposes. And this individual is not necessarily the owner of another railroad, so we do undertake work of that nature.
If we don't have the parts and can't trade someone for the parts, we use a lot of things for barter. It's typical of this industry. Then we have to make our parts. And we have a full machine shop. We have a very, very good foundry at our disposal. And we have actually had a lot of patterns made, a lot of castings made, or we'll machine parts from billet. So we do make a lot of our own replacement parts. And we make the pieces that go inside the main parts to I'll say like the nozzles for the injectors. We make these parts and keep them in stock so that we have a ready supply of parts that we can use to keep our locomotives going indefinitely, we hope.
One of the most enjoyable things for me is to see people come to the Strasburg Railroad and experience turn-of-the-century transportation. It's one of the few types of historic displays or museum-type situations where the people can actually experience part of history. Here at the Strasburg Railroad, you become part of that history by being a passenger. You can hear it, you can feel it, you can smell it, you can taste it. You get a real experience that takes you back to the turn of the century. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to preserve this historic equipment, and we're trying to give people a feel for what it was like. So that's what I really enjoy here at the railroad.
By the time we reach the station, we will have traveled 9 miles over the rails of history.
We hope you've enjoyed this view of the Strasburg Railroad. And when you do come to ride on the railroad, be sure to allow enough time to visit the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum with its many railroad artifacts. And of course, the main hall with its great collection of locomotives. And it's located just across the street from the Strasburg Railroad Station. With such attractions as the Caboose Motel, the Choo Choo Barn, the Toy Train Association Museum, the Strasburg Railroad. The immediate area of Strasburg, Pennsylvania is a rail fan's delight. Thank you for watching America's Historic Steam Railroads.
I enjoyed it, thank you. Bye-bye.
Alright, well there you have it. What an amazing video and an amazing train ride. A few quick extra facts about the Strasburg Railroad that were not mentioned, because this video is kind of old and out of date. Besides for steam engines, supposedly they also have a GG1, And at one point in time, it's either still down there or it's left. Norfolk and Western 611 came for a visit. They are also home to the country's only operational full-size Thomas the Tank Engine. And they store several non-powered models, including the one that comes to Grapevine every year for a day out with Thomas. And on the Grapevine Vintage Railroad, a train not too far from my house that takes you from Grapevine to the forward stockyards, the railroad once owned the 6 passenger cars that the Grapevine Railway now owns. And that subject is for another video in itself. It was also rumored that one of the passenger cars on the Strasburg Road, one of the open-air cars, was used in the film Hello Dolly, but I really have no idea. And supposedly they have a few more steam engines they have acquired that are operational or being reserved for operation. To be honest, I have not done my research on this road, so before you quote me on anything, take a look for yourself and make sure it's up to date. Anyway, that wraps it up for this video. Until next time, please be safe around trains. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment. Jesus loves you, and I'll see you guys next time. Happy rails, y'all.